Hey guys, what's up? It's Charlie here, and today we're gonna see if you can pass these FBI agent tests. Have you ever wanted to be a secret agent? Maybe you want to work for the FBI or be a spy like James Bond working for MI6. Well guys, to do that you'll need to pass these amazing tests. These are some detective riddles and tests only a secret agent will be able to work out. Be sure to tally up how many you get and write down your comments at the end. But first, why not subscribe and press the notification bell too. Okay, so our first test is called Bad Vacation. One day, a couple went to the Bahamas for their honeymoon. However, the husband returned alone. That's because his wife passed in a bad boating incident. Of course, the police had to look into this. And one thing they did when looking into it was called up the travel agent that booked the trip. After they did that, they accused the man and arrested him. But how did they know that the man did it? See if you can work out how the police knew the husband was behind the demise of his wife. I'll give you guys some time on screen to work it out, so be sure to rack your brains. Alright guys, did you work it out in 10 seconds? If you did, then you could be well on your way to becoming an FBI agent. But if not, don't worry, I'm gonna reveal the answer to you. The answer was the police called up the travel agent. The travel agent then told them he'd only booked a one-way ticket for his wife. He already knew his wife wasn't going to return from their honeymoon, but he was. That's why he bought himself a return ticket, but not one for his wife. Next up is Chemist's letter. One day, a famous chemist was found deceased in his own lab. It was clear someone was behind this, but who? The only piece of evidence was a piece of paper that had various chemical names written on it. Those chemicals were nickel, carbon, oxygen, lanthanum, and sulfur. And the chemist only had 3 people visit him the day he passed. One of them was another scientist named Janet. Another was his nephew named Nicholas. And thirdly, his wife Beatrice. But when the FBI got to the scene, they knew who did it right away. But how did they know who it was? I'll give you guys a bit of time to work this out, so try and crack this puzzle. Well guys, to work this out, you need to look at the only evidence in the lab. That was the paper with various chemicals on it. Now, looking at those 5 chemicals, you may wonder what significance do they have? But you actually need to look at the abbreviations of all these chemicals. That would be Ni, Co, La, and S. If you put them together, you'll get the name Nicholas. That's right guys, that was the clue that his nephew Nicholas was behind his passing. Next up is car shot. One day, the police came across a man who'd been shot in his car. They found no traces of gunpowder on his clothing, meaning the person who did this did not do it in his car. There were also no holes in the car, and all of the car's doors and windows were closed. So how could the person have taken this man's life? I'll give you guys some time to work it out, and if you get it right, I'll be very impressed. Alright guys, you had to really look at the car for this one. That is because that car is a convertible. First, the person shot him and then closed the roof. If you were able to work this out in seconds, then you should join the FBI. But if not, don't worry, we have some more tests coming up in a moment. Next up is poisoned drinks. One day, 2 girls named Alice and Betty went out for drinks together. They ordered the same drink. But Betty was very thirsty and she finished 5 in the time it took Alice to finish just 1. But it turned out later the drinks were poisoned. Despite this, only Alice passed away. But if she only drank 1 while Betty drank 5, how could this be? I'll give you guys 10 seconds to try and work this one out. Well guys, in case you didn't get it, the answer was ice. That's right guys, the poison was in the ice. Alice's had time to melt, which is why she passed. But because Betty was drinking them too quickly before the ice could melt, she wasn't. Maybe you got this one right, as some say this is kind of an easy puzzle. But personally, I think this is pretty tricky, so if you got it right, give yourself a pat on the back. Coming up next is ALIBI. If you get accused of something, it helps to have an alibi. That's someone who can back you up and confirm where you were at a certain time. Well, a man had passed away and the police thought a man named Roger did it. They worked out the man passed at 8 on the dot. But when the police asked Roger's wife, she said he came home at 8. But despite this, the police still arrested Roger. Why would this be if he was supposedly home at 8? I'll give you guys some time to work it out, and if you get it right, then well done. Okay guys, did you work out why they still arrested Roger? The reason was because the man passed at 8 PM that night. But Roger's wife said he came home at 8 AM the next day. It looks like Roger's going to be going to jail and his wife will be getting a divorce. Next up is funeral. So for this one, a girl is at the funeral of her own mother. At the funeral, she meets a nice man and they really hit it off. But before he left, she had no time to ask for his phone number. She tried to track him down, but to no avail, and she didn't know anyone who could contact him. A few days later, the woman's brother passes away. But who was behind the passing of the woman's brother? This is not only a hard riddle to get, but apparently if you get this right, you may be a psychopath. So guys, I'll give you 10 seconds to try and rack your brains and work this out. The answer was, the woman was behind the passing of her own brother. That's right, she took her brother's life in the hope the man would show up to his funeral. That way they could meet up again and she could get his number. One professor from MIT said this was the hardest puzzle of all time. So if you got it right, then you're either very smart or a psychopath to think that way. Next up is objects. 4 people work in an office together. One day they all brought something along with them. One of them bought a cell phone. The other bought a thermos, and another one of them bought a book. But on that very same day, the 4th person in their office passed away. One of the men was clearly responsible, but when the police came, they couldn't find anything. All they found out was the man had passed by a sharp object. But why did the police find nothing? I'll give you guys some time to work this out right now. Okay guys, did you work out why they found nothing? And more to the point, did you work out which man was behind this man's passing? Well guys, the answer was the man with the thermos. The man brought with him an ice shard in the thermos. Then after he used it on the man, it then melted. That's why the police found nothing. So guys, were you able to work out why the police found nothing and who was responsible? If you were, then congratulations, you should join the FBI. And finally on this list of FBI agent tests, we have letter mystery. One day a man was found to not be alive in his own home. The only people in his home were him, his wife, and his 2 children. And the only piece of evidence left behind was a note. But on the note was pure gibberish. There were 3 words which made no sense. The words said T hours M. But when the FBI agents saw this note, they instantly knew who was responsible. So guys, who could have been responsible for this man's passing? I'll give you some time to work it out right now. Okay guys, the answer was the man himself was responsible. That is because they were able to decode his note. Once they decoded the note, they realized it said it was me. So really the man did it to himself and he was responsible, not his wife or children. Alright guys, now it's time to comment down below how many of these you got correct. If you got over half of these correct, then maybe consider joining the FBI as you're super smart and perceptive. But guys, be sure to check out the poll in the top right corner and vote for if you would ever want to join the FBI.